My name is Richard Wood and I work for Safran Software as VP for International Business Development. I'm meeting today with Rusty Johnson to answer a question I'm often asked by customers and prospects. What is different about our new risk application Safran Risk, and why would I move from Pertmaster, which I use today, to use Safran Risk? Of course, this is especially relevant given that Pertmaster is no longer being further developed and is being supported only. Rusty, you led the previous Pertmaster team in developing the original product, and you helped us design and build Safran Risk. In fact, we hired some of your old team here as well, who brought all their experience and lessons learned from developing Pertmaster with them. So let me begin by asking you, what would you say is the most significant takeaway from your Pertmaster experience that guided your thinking in designing Safran Risk?
Thanks, Richard. Well, I suppose my biggest takeaway has to be that I think, although Pertmaster was functionally a very rich product, it probably became a bit too complex. I think we were so busy trying to cater for expert users and to the demands from the market that somehow we just forgot to focus on the actual risk analysis process. And the result of that is that some of the ideas that were in Pertmaster just didn't conflicted with other ideas that were in Pertmaster. So, for example, risk factors and the risk register should really be the same thing, but they don't play very nicely together. So, in short, the end result was a comprehensive product, but one that's not too easy to use because it's got too many ways of doing things, and not streamlined enough because there isn't a process to follow. So what were our design goals for Safran Risk? Well, obviously, Safran Risk is a quantitative schedule risk tool, but one of our primary goals was to make it easier to use than Pertmaster, but not simplified. So we are looking to try and create something that has the same depth that Pertmaster had, but probably done in a slightly more unified way. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, in Pertmaster, as I mentioned before, you had all these potentially conflicting ideas, like, for example, risk factors. In Safran Risk, there is just one quantitative risk register, and that contains all of the risks and uncertainty, events, factors, weather modeling, correlation. It's all defined in one place, which makes it a much more sort of coherent and I guess a kind of grown-up way of looking at the problem. And ultimately, to make it easier to use, we really wanted wanted the UI to be much more sort of process driven, so you knew where you were in the process at any one time.
Okay, can we have a look at some of this then, Rusty, and just see how it does all work together?
Let's just quickly remind ourselves what the process is for doing a quantitative risk analysis. First of all, we need to get a schedule, then we need to validate it, then we need to create some risks, model and analyze the schedule, review the results, and ultimately, when you finish that, report back. So let's just remind ourselves how this looks in Pertmaster. On the left-hand side, you'll see the process that you need to go through, but this isn't really linked to what you see in the tool itself. It's just a guide to help you. Because Pertmaster itself is really a scheduling tool, you have access to all of these features and functions all of the time. All of the risk modeling that you need to do is available here on the risk menu. But as I mentioned before, not all of these tools work together quite as seamlessly as they perhaps should. And then finally, you have the reports here, which again is a mix of scheduling, schedule checking, and some of these are risk reports. In short, it's not as streamlined as it should be. So by contrast, let's take a look at how this is done in Safran Risk. At the top here, you'll see some tabs. This is effectively the process that you need to work through. So you start at the left with the schedule, and you'll see that all of the scheduling functionality that you need is under that one tab. Then you move across the process, validating the schedule with our integrated schedule checking. Here we define the risks, and this is the quantitative risk register I mentioned earlier. And you move through, you can define additional correlation if you need, map the risks to the schedule, and then finally you can analyze here. Now, the important thing to note, I suppose, at this stage is everything to the left of the analyze button, these are all inputs to the model, and to the right, these are all the outputs to the model. These are all the things that are calculated from doing the risk analysis.
Rusty, I noticed a schedule there. How important is that to the way this product works?
Well, it's absolutely at the centre of a quantitative schedule risk analysis. It's the heart and soul, if you like. We need a scheduler that's robust and accurate. It needs to be able to handle different relationship types, resources, calendars, and it needs to be fast. Um, it's not only important for the analysis. If you think about the actual risk process that we talked about before, there is after you review the results, there is this iterative step where you need to go in and manage the schedule and probably change it. If that process involves you having to go back and import the schedule every time you want to make a change, the whole process becomes much more time consuming. Whereas in Safran Risk, what happens is you have access to a full scheduling environment under this tab. So you can go through, you can modify calendars, resources, relationships, activities. It's all there. And I guess one of the big differences between Pertmaster and Safran, because obviously Pertmaster could do those things as well, is that Safran is built on a database, so it's much more geared towards an enterprise user who perhaps wants to share and collaborate on a schedule. Having said that, it does also work standalone, so you can just run it on a desktop.
Thanks, Rusty. Tell me, what improvements have you made in Safran Risk over Pertmaster in understanding the impact of these risks and how you go about reporting on them?
Well, I think we've made two really big improvements. Um, by, by separating out the risks into a risk register, we're able to always show you the task sensitivity, which is shown on the right here, versus the risk sensitivity. This got quite confusing in Pertmaster, and it's much clearer in Safran Risk. The second thing is, often people wanted to know not just which is the most sensitive risk, but also what is the time and dollar impact of that risk. And to do that, we've added a new report called the sensitivity analysis. And this is done really by a process called sensitivity by exclusion. So what we do is we rerun the analysis lots of times, and each time we remove one risk, and each run represents one of those curves. So I'm just going to turn some of these curves off to make it a little bit more clear. So what happens here is the black curve represents the curve when all of the risks are in. That's the normal output from the risk analysis. The greeny curve here is what happens when e-communication is turned off, and you can see the project finishes significantly earlier. Now, in order to do this, to calculate these numbers, we have to ask another question, which is what confidence level you want to work at. So here we're working at 80%, so we can read across 80%, and where the lines cross, that tells us the amount of time that could be saved if that risk didn't exist, and that allows us to calculate both a duration value and the cost value. But it allows us to look side by side and see the cost impact of a risk versus the duration impact of a risk, and we can also change the confidence level to ask the question at a different value. So if I move this to 40%, you can see we can read across the value at 40% here, and we'll actually get different values in this tornado. So what I really like about this, it's very transparent as to what's going on. There's no magic. It is the sort of analysis that people were doing manually in Pertmaster, but here it's all been automated for you.
Thanks, Rusty. That was very clear. Before I wrap up finally, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just that I think Safran Risk has the potential to be a much better product than Pertmaster ever was. And that's for a number of reasons. Number one, it's built around a really robust scheduler. Number two, it's got the benefit of hindsight of all the mistakes and good things that we did at Pertmaster. And number three, I think the team at Safran reminds me a lot of Pertmaster in the good old days. They're really responsive. They want to make a difference, and I think they can.
Thank you, Rusty. I wanted to quickly summarize what we've covered today. We wanted to answer the question, why would I move from Pertmaster to Safran Risk? And to answer this question, you highlighted a number of features that you helped design into Safran Risk based on your experience at Pertmaster. These include the fact that Safran Risk is based on a really robust scheduler, which is critical to the performance and depth of functionality that we provide. You described risk factors that support accurate modeling, and you showed how easy Safran Risk is to use, even given the robust algorithms that it provides. And we looked at some of the great reports that never made it into Pertmaster but make Safran Risk so powerful. So I want to leave you with one final thought. At Safran, we pride ourselves on being very responsive and very open. Customers can call in directly to the team, make suggestions, or discuss any issues they have, and we encourage that. So if anyone listening to this video would like to trial Safran, we'll happily provide a free 30-day trial. To organize this, please contact me, or if you're from the Americas, you can contact Jeff Russell directly, and details are on this slide here. And please join us on our journey.